trending statement of a man purporting to be addressing the Honorable Minister of Works, misguided, self-serving, and vicious propaganda typical of a proxy speaking for non-conforming contractors. The attention of the Honorable Minister of Works, His Excellency Senator Engineer Nweze David Umahi CON, has been drawn to a trending statement of a man purporting to be addressing the Honorable Minister of Works over the state of rails in Nigeria, and which was credited to the Chairman, House Committee on FEMA, Honorable Engineer Doremi Abasi Oseni. The Honorable Minister views this unprovoked attack as an inconceivable embarrassment demeaning to his person and the Federal Minister of Works, as neither he nor his permanent secretary was in such a meeting where the said Chairman of House Committee on FEMA was said to be addressing the Honorable Minister of Works. In a news conference dated 28 October 2024, the Honorable Minister stated that it was no doubt akin to darkening counsel without knowledge for the Honorable Chair, House Committee on FEMA, to vilify him over the bad state of federal rails inherited from previous administrations, numbering over 2,604, without deferring to the records of various interventions made by the Renewed Hope administration, which have made a great difference in the public transport trajectory of Nigeria. The Honorable Minister has, however, chosen to refrain from joining issues with the said House Committee Chairman on FEMA because of the respect he has for the hallowed institution of the National Assembly, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives. He said, and I quote, "For the respect of Mr. Speaker and, of course, the Senate President and the National Assembly that I belong, I will refrain myself from joining issues with him." He said, "I have failed, and if a blind man is to assess you, your guess is as good as mine, because if he has no knowledge of anything, then his knowledge becomes his guide, so I will not join issues with him," end of quote. He views the action of addressing him as if he was before the House Committee on FEMA as deliberate, ill-motivated, misguided, self-serving, and nothing but a vicious propaganda typical of a proxy representing the interests of non-conforming contractors who have considered themselves into adversaries against the Federal Minister of Works for insisting on best practices in project pricing, variation on price, and foreign exchange differentials. There is no doubt that the vituperations of the House Committee Chairman on FEMA were from the abundance of his heart. But to say that all the roads across the country have failed for the failure of the Honorable Minister of Works to address the existing road with the resources approved, or for his failure to deploy the 300 billion supplementary fund approved for him, or that he's concentrating his energy on the less priority issues, shows that the House Committee Chairman on FEMA either has little knowledge of the volume of road infrastructure deficits inherited from successive administrations and cost requirements for road construction, or that he deliberately refused, ignored, and neglected to appreciate the Renewed Hope administration's intervention milestones, or he is playing to the gallery on the prompting of the non-conforming contractors. He said, and I quote, "And let me say to him that the projects Mr. President inherited were a total of 2,604 projects. As of May 29, 2023, the total cost was 13 trillion naira. That is what the President inherited, and a debt to contractors of 1.6 trillion naira. And when you look at the variation by the reason of the subsidy removal, by the reason of the floating of the dollar, you will find out that if you review all these projects, you will see that you will get over 19 trillion naira for the total ongoing projects. Mr. President did what no other president has done. He manifested all the projects in the 2024 budget with the hope to give him time to look for resources, including loans, to do these projects. I wasn't in that meeting where the Honorable House member was said to be addressing me, and there's no way I was going to complain of resources to fix our roads, because Mr. President has given very special attention to the Federal Minister of Works. He has paid so much attention to the sufferings of Nigerians vis-a-vis the road situation. And the ministry is not the only ministry in Nigeria. Mr. President has a lot of other challenging situations and competing demands, yet he has given priority attention to the Minister of Works, end of quote. He noted that the utterances of the chairman chairman House Committee on FEMA were no doubt aimed at inciting the public against the government that brought him on board, as it is a common sense that a person of his level and profession ought to know the method statement required of road construction. He said, and I quote, "There is no way you expect some projects that have lasted 20 years, 18 years, 70 years to be done in 1 year. And if he says he's an engineer, he should try and understand the processes that are involved in the Ministry of Works. It is different from his procurement of fertilizer with his constituency project. They are two different things. You have to go to the field, you have to measure the project, you have to design it, and you have to do in-house procurement to look at it." End of quote. He further said, and I quote, "The method deployed in the construction will require you to do earthwork, to compact, and so on and so forth. And if you don't give it 1 month at least, and you start to put stone base and asphalt, it will fail. So those times that you are preparing the subgrade, the sub-base, and the base course before the pavement, what do you call it? It is not valued by people like him as progress made." End of quote. Furthermore, the Honorable Minister views it as a gross violation of parliamentary procedure for the chairman of the House Committee on FEMA to invade the legislative powers of the Senate and House Committees on Works, which have been carrying out oversight functions on the ministry and are conversant with achievements and challenges of the ministry. He carpeted the chairman of House Committee on FEMA for acting outside the legislative competence of his committee, highlighting the modest achievements of the ministry across the 6 geopolitical zones. The Honorable Minister thanked the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, for the unprecedented attention he has given in bridging the funding gap on inherited projects. He said, and I quote, "What we did is that we used over 90% of these funds to keep all the inherited projects alive as directed by Mr. President, because a project has to be alive and in a budget before you can look for funds to assist it to be completed." That's what we have done. And so for those who are bitter that we have no projects to award to them, this is the reality. He further said, and I quote, "Over 2,600 projects plus 330 supplementary projects plus the new projects in 2024 is not a tea party. It requires commitment and it requires dedication, which we are doing. We work on Saturdays and Sundays and public holidays, and somebody will say we are giving attention to less priority issues without mentioning those less priority issues that we are giving attention to." End of quote. This was signed by Honorable Barrister Oji Uchenna Oji, Special Advisor Media to the Honorable Minister of Works.